Everyone, hello and welcome to the final installment of the 9-part Greta-thon series on Coffee Nick's Movie Picks, a limited film review series celebrating and honoring the portfolio of Greta Gerwig over a lovely cup of coffee. My name is Nick Delaney and I'm your show host, coffee critic, film fan, and the guy who is almost done talking about Greta Gerwig. Almost. In this episode, we are winding down from the Greta-thon series. I'll be sharing some final thoughts, summarizing all of the research that we talked about into one place, and I might have a special announcement up my sleeve. Please take a seat, stay a while, and let's talk Greta-thon over some coffee. But first, and always but first, please be sure to follow at Coffee Nick's Movie Picks on Instagram and TikTok. There you can stay up to date on new releases, see coffee pictures that go along with each episode, get some quick movie thoughts from yours truly, and submit Dear Coffee Nick letters. Again, that's at Coffee Nick's Movie Picks on Instagram and TikTok. How are we doing out there? Can I get a vibe check? It's been such a long day. It's been such a long month. I did say that this series would all be released in the month of August, and it is currently September 9th. This will probably go out on September 11th. So that didn't happen. It did not all come out in one month, and that's okay. That's okay. How are we doing? Like I said, a long day. We at work moved offices. We moved to a building that was about 2 blocks away from our old building. But those 2 blocks, they can take it out of you. They really can. It was very strenuous. It was very exhausting. We got a lot of hard work done, but it was lovely. I feel like it was a team bonding experience. I don't know if I shared, but my entire company is 3 people. 6 if you're counting interns and part-time people, but they're remote. So 3 people in person moving us. It was a lot. And I have not mentioned this on this podcast yet. I'm going to Texas later this week on Wednesday. I'm going to Austin, Texas, and I'm going to be seeing Mitski and Ethel Cain. So very excited about that as well. I'm just having a little solo moment in Austin. I'm going to be exploring the city, seeing the sights, having some nice food, whatnot. And then later this month, I'm seeing Charlie and Troy, of course. Very excited about the Sweat Tour. Very excited about that. I cannot wait to see what they have up their sleeve. That's everything going on with me. Like I said, it's been a long month because when I started this series, when I started recording these and writing these, I was on my other trip. And I'm not usually jet setter like this, way too much, but it's just kind of crazy. I feel like this Greta-thon series has not taken up so much of like this chapter, but I don't know. It's just felt so much longer than I think it has been. Like, it's been a month and a half. Oh, yes, it's been a lot. I hope you all are doing well. I should preface this by saying that this is the finale episode of the Greta-thon. So I don't think that anyone listening to this episode will have not listened to other episodes in the Greta-thon, but if you have not listened to other episodes in the Greta-thon, I highly recommend doing that before listening to this episode. Please go back and listen to some episodes that include reviews of Frances Ha, Lady Bird, Little Women, and Barbie, just to, get a taste for the Greta-thon and everything, and just to make sense of, I guess, this episode a bit more and to contextualize it. But yes, this is the finale episode. Really, nothing new here. It's just kind of like a let's relax and talk episode about what just happened. We're unwinding. But yes, like I said, I want to use this space to just kind of like take a look back at the Greta-thon and talk about what I liked, what I didn't like. This is just kind of like a palate cleanser, I guess. We're winding down. I want to start the episode with my special announcement. And this announcement is kind of crazy because it started as one thing. I always had this announcement that I wanted to make during this episode, I guess. But it has evolved, and now it's like much more extreme. The announcement is that my research that a lot of this Greta-thon has been based on was published. Crazy. And the title of the research is It's Barbie and It's Ken, Unpacking Greta Gerwig's Signature Style as a Feminist Film Auteur. I was not planning for this research to be published in the middle of the Greta-thon. In fact, right after I recorded the Lady Bird episode, or maybe after it came out, I got the news that it was approved for publication. And I was told that it might not be officially published until January 2025. So I went through like the last half of the Greta-thon being like, okay, I'm going to make an announcement in the final episode saying, oh my gosh, my research is going to be published in 2025. And then I found out that the research was published. It's just out. It's approved, it's out there, and it's just a part of the conversation now. And I was just floored, obviously. And so it really means something to me that this research was published in the middle of the Greta-thon. Like I said, I did not put the Greta-thon together thinking that this would happen, or even imagining that this would happen, or hoping that this would happen. It just did, and it feels very meaningful to me. And it's just been a crazy ride. Getting this article ready for publication was such a long process. When it first started, this was just my senior thesis, and it meant everything to me then. It still does now. But it's just, I don't know. It's been a part of my life for so long now. I mean, it's been, how long has it been? A year and a half since I started this. Wait, no. Almost 2 years since I started this research. So it's just like almost become like a person I know. And it just is so, it feels so good to have that out in the world and for like other people to experience as well. And I am so grateful to my co-author, Dr. Meyer, for her contributions to this article and for her guidance and expertise with this article while it was in its very early stages, when it was just me working on this so I could graduate from school. Her guidance was absolutely pivotal, and this article would not at all be a thing if it wasn't for her. I remember when we were brainstorming like senior thesis topics, I had so many different ideas, and I just had like this little tiny idea that was like, so many of Gerwig's films have like this similar narrative, and it was very surface level. I was like, Frances Ha takes place in New York, and she's from Sacramento, and Lady Bird's from Sacramento, and she goes to New York. And I was like, these films feel very connected to each other. And so I was like, let's look into that. What does that mean, and how can I make that work as a part of like my communications degree? And Dr. Meyer, she gave me feedback for all of my list of ideas, and she was like, oh, do this Greta Gerwig one. That's an auteur study. And I was like, what is an auteur study? So I didn't know the first thing about auteur studies before I started this research. So it was really just such an experience getting to know, all of this research. And also I was so intimidated contributing to feminist research and feminist literature with this article. And I really, I really hope that this article pays respects to all of the feminist research that has come before it. And I hope it fits in seamlessly to this conversation of feminist film research. And I hope it contributes something meaningful. But really, I hope that anyone that comes across my article, they find just as much meaning and comfort in Greta's films as I do. And that's why I made this Greta-thon series as well. I want people that listen to this show to also be able to enjoy Greta's films, because they mean so much to me, and I really hope they can mean a lot to other people, or just as much to other people, because these just have had such a comforting and warm presence in my life. So that's why I made this, to further share these films and further share my research with other people. And yeah, I hope it means something to you guys. But yes, I'm very excited to say that the research is officially published. It's in Communication Studies Journal. And if you're interested in reading it, access to academic journals is really tough. If you're a college student, an active college student, I think you can access it through databases. But if you are not a college student, or if you're having trouble accessing it, just DM the Coffee Nicks Movie Picks account on Instagram, and I will send you an access link so you can read this article. And it'll sound a lot more put together than anything in this Greta-thon did. So I encourage you to do that. But very excited about that and speechless, honestly. Yeah, like I said, I wanted to use this episode, this smaller length episode, to summarize all in one place these signatures that we were talking about. So really, what I noticed in my research across all of these films, this is one thing that every single film does, is that they have characters, female protagonists, who are out of place. And what does out of place mean? And I feel like this is something I did not verbalize well enough in any of the other episodes, but they do not act in alignment with societal norms for their age or their gender. So for age, for instance, I think the best example for this is probably Frances in Frances Ha. A lot of these characters are in the stage of life where they are now expected to act like adults, and Frances is a character who refuses to do so or has a hard time accepting the fact that she's an adult. So the very opening scene of Frances Ha, we see Frances, who is in her late 20s, playing in the park with her friend, peeing on the New York metro tracks, dancing in the streets, running through the streets, just doing all sorts of things that someone in their late 20s, it's not normal for them to do. So Frances is acting out of place based on her age. And then another out of place, I guess, type that we were looking at is characters who act out of place based on their gender and specifically their femininity. So the best example for this, I think, is Jo March from Little Women, who basically refuses to do anything that's ladylike. She explicitly states multiple times her disappointment in being a girl. She wishes she was a boy. And she just does not act at all in alignment with what polite young ladies were supposed to during that time. So what do these out-of-place characters mean? I think that they are representative of women who do not fit societal norms or any societal molds. And I think really that these characters are meant to empower women who are out of place. All of these characters throughout the events of their films, they're not seen turning their back on their out-of-placeness. They actually double down and they embrace their out-of-placeness from societal norms. And I think that this is just a lesson and a message to women watching to not conform to societal standards that are sexist and ridiculous. I think that these women are painted as trailblazers, and they are painted as, being very happy that they do not conform and happy that they act as themselves. So I think that these are very important characters to be represented, and I think that they are a signature across all of Gerwig's works. Her writing and her storytelling is attracted to characters like this, and all of these characters act in a way that is distinctly Gerwig. So that's what makes up an auteur signature, really. Another one of the signatures we looked at were the struggling masculinities throughout a lot of these movies. This signature really started with Lady Bird, with the character of Kyle, who was illustrated as very much a douchebag and pathetic and pretentious in a lot of different ways. And his character was there to emphasize and to better illustrate the character arc of Lady Bird. And another example that I really like to use is Laurie from Little Women, also played by Timothée Chalamet, who shows that he is very naive and very ignorant of the struggles that women face in that time period of Little Women. And his ignorance emphasizes the privilege that men have. And Barbie is, of course, a wonderful example of struggling masculinities as well. I feel that Barbie answers so many of the questions raised in these prior films about masculinity. These Kens are reliant on control in their lives. So in the beginning, they are completely submissive to the Barbies in this world, and their world just revolves around the Barbies and being controlled and affirmed by them. But then when these Kens discover the patriarchy, they just kind of go crazy with it, and their whole identity becomes being dominant to Barbie, aka the women. And in the end, they learn that they don't have to identify with, being submissive or dominant to the women in their lives. They can just be themselves. So I really think that Gerwig has done an amazing job with the signature of struggling masculinities, and I'm interested to see where she goes with it in the future. And another signature that we looked at that was very common starting with Lady Bird is the mother-daughter relationships. In Lady Bird, Little Women, and Barbie, Gerwig takes a very special interest in the mother-daughter relationship, and more specifically illustrating the similarities between a mother and a daughter. The original name for Lady Bird, the film, was Mothers and Daughters. And Little Women is obviously a film that is very much centered around the relationship between Marmee and Jo, a mother and a daughter. And what really led me to believe, like, oh, this is a signature, this is something that Gerwig is very interested in and tends to gravitate towards, is Barbie. I was not expecting that film to have any sort of mother-daughter relationship at all. But then it compares Ruth, the creator of Barbie, to a mother. And Barbie is sort of Ruth's child. And so at that point, I was like, this is absolutely a signature. So I'm interested to see where she goes with that, especially with her upcoming projects. I'm not sure how it'll work in, but we'll see. Another thing that I think Gerwig pays special attention to in her films is the use of color. In Lady Bird, color was very dependent on the relationship between Lady Bird and her mom. Were they in an argument? Were they having a good relationship at that time? And also, where was Lady Bird's level of guilt? Where was her level of joy or loss because of her relationship with her mother? After her and her mother get into a fight, the movie becomes a lot colder and there's not as many warm colors. But in scenes where Lady Bird is out with friends and smoking weed and partying or whatever, colors are very warm to communicate a sense of childhood or even just joy with life. And I think the best example for color in Gerwig's portfolio is Little Women. And that movie tells time and it tells emotion with its use of warmth, color warmth and saturation. I think that Gerwig's use of color in Little Women is absolutely brilliant. And I think about it all the time. It's a developing signature, I think, but something I'm very interested to see where it goes. So all of this together, I think that Gerwig really makes movies that have a character that people who are out of place can relate to. Not only this, but I think a character that really anyone can relate to. These are feminist characters because of their confidence in being out of place from ridiculous and unnecessary societal norms. And I am just very grateful that Gerwig depicts these characters and depicts them and their stories so well. She is a master of the coming-of-age genre, and this is another thing she does so well through her use of color, through her use of narrative plot points and character relationships. I really appreciate Gerwig because I think that she gives voice to so many different emotions in our childhood and in our personal real-life coming-of-age stories that we don't really have the words for. She has found the ability to communicate very abstract feelings and emotions about the past and about where we are now, and like the unease of growing up. I just think that she is a brilliant writer and director. I don't think there's anyone out there like her in the best way possible. And I'm just incredibly grateful for the art that she creates and what she's been able to do with her stories and her characters and even just source materials like Little Women and Barbie. She's paid such respect to those source materials as well. Another thing that I really like to research and look into is the art of adaptation. And that's another thing where I think Gerwig is the person to look towards. She does adaptation so well. I just can't wait to see what else she does with adaptation. So that's basically my research, very sort of casual terms. If you would like to read that in sort of a more formal and coherent way, definitely ask me for the link to the article and I'd be happy to send that over. But I hope that I was able to summarize like a lot of what I've been talking about throughout the course of this series. But I just wanted to also address some of Gerwig's upcoming projects as well. So she wrote the screenplay for the upcoming live-action Snow White film. I'm very interested about that. There's been a lot of controversy about that movie, and I'm not here to comment about that. I'm here to say that I love Rachel Zegler, and if you are the type of person that's shitting on Rachel Zegler online, fuck you. Sorry. I don't know if that'll be a good movie. I think that, when we're looking at that from a Gerwig researcher standpoint, she's just doing the screenplay. So we're looking at the dialogue, the narrative, the story. But when it comes to all of the other decisions made, Gerwig is not the director of this film. So I am not going to pin those things on Gerwig. I think the handling of the dwarf characters has been very interesting, and I honestly don't know what to make of that. But do I think that's a decision that Gerwig would have made? I don't know. But when I look at this movie, yes, I'll be looking at it in its entirety and reviewing that. But when I look at it as a fan of Gerwig, I will just be looking at the dialogue and the narrative. So I encourage you all to do the same as well if you are going to be making assumptions of Gerwig's talents as a writer from that movie. She is going to be writing and directing an upcoming Chronicles of Narnia film for Netflix, which a lot of people have heard about. I know nothing about Narnia, but trust and believe in the next few months, I'm going to be the biggest Narnia fan you ever heard of, so that when the film comes out and people are like, oh my gosh, Gerwig's directing a Narnia movie, I'm going to be like, yeah, me and Gerwig, we love Narnia. So I'm going to be a liar and a fake coming soon about Narnia. And I also heard that she's going to be working on a tap dance musical project, and it's like an original story. But I looked at IMDb, and that's not listed as an upcoming project anymore. So I don't know what the deal is about that, but we'll see. That should be really cool. I think I'm most excited for that. We will see, though, if these signatures continue and how they continue. I think that since some of these signatures have been repeated for the past 3 movies now, I think that a lot of them will continue. But I also think it's wrong to put directors and writers in a box and restrict them and think like, oh, because they did this and this and this, they're going to do it again. So I'm very open-minded. I can't wait to see what Gerwig does next. I low-key kind of want her to do like a completely different genre. It'd be cool to see her like combine coming of age with horror. She was in the House of the Devil movie that T. West directed, and I'm just obsessed with that little credit on her portfolio. She was just an actor in it, but I want to see what like a different genre from her would look like. But also I just love her coming of age movies, and she could make like a million different versions of Lady Bird and I would be happy. I'm not sure about a Lady Bird sequel though. I've heard word about that, and I don't know how I feel. Maybe if it was like an anthology sort of thing where it takes different mother-daughter relationships or different stories from Sacramento into account. But it would be interesting. Anything she puts out, I'm interested in, and I want to see what it will be like. Okay, sort of getting more into the Greta-thon itself and my thoughts on it. So I know I've kind of been sharing thoughts about it scattered across the different episodes and everything, but I want to bring it all into one place. What did I like about the Greta-thon? So this was always meant to be a challenge. This is called the Greta-thon because I wanted this to be a podcasting marathon for me and for the listeners. But what I wasn't expecting for you, the listeners, sorry, I said that like you guys aren't listening to this. But what I wasn't expecting was to record half these episodes on a boat, to move to a new city, and to move offices, and to have so many other projects happening, and to need so much mental health time, and to want time away from podcasting during the month of August. I needed some space, I guess, because of moving. I think moving triggered a lot of things. This was always meant to be a challenge, and I think the circumstances really emphasized that challenge. And I'm really glad that I took a step back and I did not follow the schedule, because I think in the end it allowed me to put out better episodes. But I'll talk about that in a second. What I did like about this, I loved the coffee reviews. I think that the coffees were kind of like very underrated in the grand scheme of the Greta-thon. I love that. I wasn't expecting to do this, but I love that each coffee I reviewed lined up with the movie I was reviewing. So I did The Nomad with Frances Ha, Maman's Cold Brew with Lady Bird, and Maman means mother. And I did Childhood Cafe for Barbie. I just picked places that I could show a lot of love for, because I wanted, just some of my favorite coffee places to be included with some of my favorite movies. What else I liked about this Greta-thon series? I loved that I was able to talk about something that I'm passionate about, and I loved that you all allowed me this space to talk about it. Thank you all for listening. I just I'm so glad that I was able to connect with you guys over this. I like that I was able to make my research available in a new way. Not everybody has easy access to my research, so I like that I was able to translate it somewhat into this audio medium. I think that having it in casual terms as well instead of very academic and formal language helped. And obviously, I just loved sharing stuff about Gerwig. I loved talking about her films. These films mean so much to me, and it's been such a joy to revisit some of them. I rewatched all of these movies before reviewing them, which is, again, why I needed some extra time. But I don't know. Once again, a lot of these movies I needed to revisit and I needed to see, especially being in a new city and watching movies that are so comforting to me. It was very important. And once again, these movies found a way to connect with me at the place I'm at now in life. I hope these movies are able to do the same for you all. Now, there were some things that I did not like as much about the Greta-thon, and I want to also talk about those just to have the record stated. It's hard to talk about Greta. It's really hard. On an academic paper, I can sort of plan things out and I can strategize and I can go back and edit some things so it could emphasize something later on. But in an audio medium, it's just different. And you can't structure things like you do on an essay. So talking about Greta in a completely new medium, that was a challenge. And also talking about just this expansive research that originally this article was about 30 pages. It's down to 15 now, but this is just very expansive research, and I really dug deep with it. So it was a lot of pressure to bring that all to the podcast, and I had to eventually choose some things that I wanted to cut out. And also, it's just hard to talk about these movies. All of these movies are favorites of mine, and they all mean so much to me in ways that are very personal and private. And like I said, each time I visit these movies, they mean something new to me because, they grow up with me. So it's hard to verbalize a lot of this on the show. And it kind of can make my reviews a little incoherent. And I don't know if I want to just talk about how much I love the movie, or if I want to be a very objective reviewer, or if I want to be more of a researcher. So there's many different hats I could wear when I review these. And it was hard to find the right one. But I appreciate you all for bearing with me through all of these, and I hope that these reviews were able to reach you in some way. So yeah. The last thing that I think was a struggle with the Greta-thon was the frequency of the episodes. On paper, it's really cool to release these episodes all in the month of August and sort of all at once, but it was really hard. And I work a 9 to 6 job every day. Except weekends, of course. It's just hard to keep up with. And also like moving while this was happening and just all of that, it was really hard. And if I did not have anything going on in the month of August, I might have been able to keep up with it. But I've always been the type of person that values quality over quantity. So I don't know why I did that. And I think because I was so pressured to keep up with the schedule, the quality sort of suffered a bit towards the middle of the Greta-thon, which is why I veered from the schedule of releases, and I wanted to take some time to just live life and to recharge because I wanted the last half of episodes to be the best quality that they could be. So yeah, this was a challenge. This was a learning experience, and I'm very grateful for this, and I'm so glad I did the Greta-thon, but I learned a lot from it, and girl, it was a challenge. It was a lot. But from this episode, you can very clearly tell that Greta means so much to me. So I would like to thank each of you, the listeners, for allowing me to do the Greta-thon and for listening to what I had to say about these movies. Like I said, I hope that these reviews and this research was able to reach you in some way. I hope that you've been able to enjoy some Greta Gerwig films this month as well. If you still haven't watched some of these movies, definitely do, and then go back and listen to the episode. But yeah, thank you all so much for listening to the Greta-thon. It means so much to me that I was able to do this. I said it in the introductory episode, but ever since I started this podcast, and even before I started, when I was just planning this podcast, I knew that the Greta-thon is something that I wanted to do. I had the visual art, like the logo for the podcast, for the Greta-thon. I had that saved on my computer this whole time. So thank you all for listening. I really do appreciate it. And I really hope that these films mean just as much to you as they do to me. I hope they give you just as much meaning and comfort. I cannot wait to get back to our regularly scheduled programming, though. I'm going to take a little bit of a hiatus, but I definitely plan on releasing episodes sometime in September. So we're going to be back to our regularly scheduled episodes sometime before October. And I have so much on the pipeline in store that I'm very excited about. You can expect more focused, limited review series of specific directors. You can expect holiday-themed episodes, holiday-themed series. I do want to have a limited series that focuses on coffee. I feel like coffee is overshadowed so much on the show. I want to give coffee sort of a spotlight somehow. So I have so much planned that I am very excited to do, and I hope you guys are excited to listen. Thank you all for tuning in to the Greta-thon on Coffee Nick's Movie Picks. Please be sure to rate the show on Apple Podcasts, follow the show on social media, and share the show with your friends. Or Greta Gerwig, if you have her contact information. Please do it. Until next time, there is no roll of the Tempest. Thanks again for listening to the Greta-thon on Coffee Nick's Movie Picks. Our opening theme is The Light Within, and our closing theme is When the Ash Settles, both themes by the Westerlies. Before you go, please be sure to follow the show on social media at Coffee Nick's Movie Picks, and give the show the Nick Pick by rating it 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Thanks so much!